We're going to check out the apple trees, see how they're doing. They've been neglected this year. This year has been crazy. We haven't had time to do very many things outside. Hopefully it's not too late to pick all these apples and I can do something with them. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'd like to welcome all the new subscribers that came over from my son's channel. And Coco wants to sniff all the apples that fell from the tree. So now that fall is here, I wanted to start sewing some fall things. Today I wanted to sew a table runner, and I think I'm going to do a few other things for the house. I'm not sure yet if I'll have time, and later on in the video I will show you what we managed to get done with the patio this year. We didn't get to do as much as we wanted because the summer just got away from us. I don't know how you'd say that, away from us. Yeah, we just didn't have time to do everything we wanted to do out there. My husband had really great ideas about changing up the steps. I'll show you that later. And so hopefully next year we'll be able to get everything done that we wanted. But we did get a few things done. Not much, but a few things done. I've been wanting to let you see all that for over a month now, and it's just been so busy. So hopefully we get back into, now that fall's here, a good routine, and Coco wants to just keep going and going and going. Where are you going, Coco? Let's go into the sewing room. Come on. Hi, so I'm back into my sewing room, and I'm going to be making a table runner. I have a fairly long kitchen table or dining room table. It seats 8, so I'm going to make it about 55 inches long, and I'm going to be making this up as I go. I gathered some fabric that I have here, and I have all this fabric here, and this is really neat because this is all fabric from vintage drapery fabric. And the colors from the 70s and 60s are all the perfect fall colors. So I cut up some pieces of that, and that's what I'm going to be using for this table runner. I've cut, this will be the main piece. It's an off-white, and I think I'm going to use, I haven't decided yet, but I think I'm going to use the back side as on the top instead of the front, because this sort of has sort of like a sheen to it. I don't know if it's showing up on camera here. But yeah, so I think I'm going to use this side. And then I have a piece of just plain white fabric for the backing, and then I have some cotton batting for the inside. I don't know if it's necessary to have that, but for a table runner, I'm sure you could make it without that. So I cut my pieces. I know the typical width of a table runner is 12 inches. I cut this to be 14 inches wide. I'll see how it looks at the end and see how wide I want to make it. That's the nice thing about this, you can make things the size you want them. Now, I'm not a quilter, and that's something I'd love to learn how to do. I've always just sewn other things. So this piece here, I'm going to put everything together, and I'm going to stitch these pieces together first, and then we'll put all the stuff on for the top. I cut out a whole bunch of leaves and stuff I'll show later. So this is the top. I'm thinking of doing it, I think I almost like the reverse side better. So I don't know if you can see it on the camera. I've drawn in some lines. What I did was I just took the ruler, and made some lines that are 2 inches apart going this way, and then 2 inches apart going that way. Um, I wish I had more experience with quilting and things like that. Maybe I could have come up with something a little more decorative, but I think this will be okay. I'm going to just sew down each of these lines to quilt this together. I've done all the stitching, and I think I'm going to give it some rounded corners. I've trimmed all my edges to make everything all straight, and I'm just going to round all the corners just to make it a little unique. To make the corners, to measure them, I just put a plate up to each corner. So now we're going to get to the fun part. And on each end, what I'm thinking, first of all, I'll show you what I did. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So with these fabrics here, I cut out, I don't know what I'm using yet. I drew some pumpkins and some leaves. I don't know if I'll be using all of these, but I cut them all out. What I did was, before I cut them out, I put some heat and bond onto the back of the fabric. And I used the back to trace my little templates there for all my leaves that I made. My husband thought this was an acorn, but it's actually a pumpkin leaf I tried to make. So I sort of added to it. Hopefully that looks more like a pumpkin leaf. So I think what I'm going to do is put a pumpkin maybe at each end. And I'm going to start with the pumpkin first, place that, and then I'll go ahead and place the leaves where I'd like to put them. I'm going to use I know I made 2 of those, one for each end. Oh, here it is. So the first thing I'm going to do is figure out where I'm going to place the pumpkin and iron that on. And I'm going to sew the pumpkin on. If you don't have the heat and bond, what works really well too is a glue stick, just so we can keep it into place while we're sewing. I iron the pumpkins onto each end, and I didn't iron on the stem because what I'm going to do first is, after I sew this on, I want to try to see if I can draw some of those little pumpkin lines, and I'm going to sew those on. I'm not good at, I should almost get a drawing or look at a picture of a pumpkin to see how it'll look. I don't know if I need to draw more. I'll try to make this one look the same. Okay, I'm gonna do this stitching and then we'll put this on. So I've decided to go around instead of with just a plain stitch. I've decided to use this stitch that's on my machine. If your machine doesn't do that, maybe you could do like even just a straight stitch or zigzag or whatever you choose. Or if you've even used the heat and bond, you don't even really need to stitch around. I think it kind of gives it a more of a finished look to it. So I wanted to finish as much detail on the pumpkin as needed to be done before I started adding the leaves. And I thought it might need something else other than just a leaf. So I drew in, I don't know if I have the camera close enough, but with pencil, some of those, I don't know what they're called, the little ringlet things that grow off of a pumpkin. So I drew a couple and I found some thread that actually matches the color I'm using for the leaf. So I'm going to just stitch around all these little swirly things that I drew. I don't know what they're called, but I think that'll really add to it, and it'll add some texture as well because so to stitch this, I'm just using a simple back stitch. So now, before I go and sew that on, I might as well, I'm going to put some leaves on and figure out where I'm going to put them. And I did 3 different colors for the leaves, and I made oak leaves and my little version of the maple leaf. I didn't make them too detailed. So I finished placing the leaves, and I just wanted them to look like they were They had fallen and landed at the bottom of the pumpkin. So I'm going to press these down. There. Now I'm going to match up the other side if I can. And go like this maybe. When I was preparing for this, I had no idea what I was going to be doing, so I just made up a whole bunch of these leaves. And I'm sure I'll find something to do with the extra leaves I've cut and the extra pumpkins. That'll do. Okay, this is going to be, this is at each end. So I hope you can see this okay. All I have left to do is sew the binding on, and for the binding, I made the bias tape using some of the brownish red color. I am using old vintage drapery fabric, so this fabric was kind of like semi-sheer, but it will still work, and I think it'll look great on the side. So this is the finished table runner. I think it turned out really nice. Get a picture of that. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you haven't yet subscribed yet, please subscribe. And I'd also like to thank all the new subscribers that came over from my son's channel. I really appreciate that. And also stick around for a follow-up on my patio makeover. So the back of the truck is just full of shrub. We had to cut out quite a bit. So I'm ready to do my chairs. I have 3 of them to do. My husband already got ahead of me and he took apart one. These are the pieces I need to make the new seats. You'll see how we put it back together again when I'm done. He pulled these apart and pulled, there's I guess this rod in the middle like this inside here, and he pulled them out on each side, and I'm going to recover them and then we're going to put them back in. But in the meantime, my husband is going to spray paint these chairs to make them look like new, and I'm going to make a cushion as well. So let's get started. So this is the fabric that I'm going to be using to cover the seats with. I got it for a really good deal. I paid $4 a yard, and a week later after I bought it, it went down to $1 a yard. My husband says it looks retro and vintage, and I like that look. And for the price, it couldn't go wrong, you know. So I'm going to be making it so the stripes are sideways on the chair. And so right now I have to measure how wide I have to make it. So I'm going to double the fabric. So I measured the width and then I just doubled it, and I'm adding extra for a seam allowance. I want it to have a nice generous seam allowance. So I just want to make sure that it stays straight like this. In the end, it needs to be about 18.5 inches wide. So I'm adding extra. I'm cutting 40 inches. After I sewed the seam, I opened it up and pressed it down, and it measures exactly what we want, and that's 18.5 inches. So now I'm going to hem the bottoms, and I'm just going to measure up on this side an inch, and then the other side we'll measure to see exactly how much we have left that we need. And then I'm just going to fold this up to match that line and press it down. Now the length needs to be 42 and a half. So bring this up a bit. And I'm just going to do the same to this side. Just fold it up. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to press this down, and I'm just going to sew up the ends here. Now that I have the ends hemmed, I am going to turn it right side out. So this seam is going to be in the center back of the chair. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a pencil here, and I'm going to mark a line 1 inch from the edge. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to sew down these lines, and then on each end I'm going to sew from the line I've sewn all the way to the other line here and leaving the ends open like this, because we need to be able to put these wires in the end. So we didn't get done as much as we had planned on down here over the summer. It ended up getting way too busy for us, but we did get a few things done. We did get rid of a lot of the bush and planted some flowers. Love flowers. And we did get one chair taken apart, painted, and a small table taken apart and painted. The other chairs still have to be done. I did sew the covers and the pillows for those. And then for the stairs, we've decided to take out the let me see here, it's such a tongue twister, railroad ties. And we're going to take those out and we're going to put in stone, we're thinking, for the stairs. So that hopefully we'll have time to do next year, I'm hoping. So we didn't get as much done as we had expected to do at the beginning of the summer, but I'm happy with what we did so far. And oh yeah, and we also planted a rose bush up there. And of course, a family of wasps have moved in underneath the lights up there, which I'm a little afraid to go over there. And you can see that fall's coming in. I think actually these leaves haven't changed much over here, but you can see it in the field. This chair looks so much nicer than it used to. Before and after.